Evening, one and all. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Really, this is not an intel kind of a segment. Honestly, just want to talk a little bit about what I've learned about Arkansas's NIL sort of allocation. I won't get into specifics monetarily per player. I'll repeat a little bit of the overall amount that I've heard and just have that's been kind of solidified for me in the last conversation I had with somebody. And then we're going to kind of go through what Arkansas, how they allocated and prioritized it in general. So when we talk NIL on this current 2025-26 roster, we'll do a little bit of that. And we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks after we learned that really Arkansas is kind of looking to maybe not be busy in this portal season outside of adding the two big men. I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess, down the road. There's more and more of the quality portal players coming off the board, and it just doesn't seem like that's been a priority for the staff. But we've spent time looking at the 10 that they do have, and that includes the return of Carter Knox, assuming that happens. We've looked at it from a minutes per player standpoint. We've talked about maybe potential for all SEC, all league kind of stuff. What up, Kevin? Angel. Thanks, Angel. It's all good, man. It's a Thursday evening. Going to be rocking and rolling with the Pro Hog tonight. Moses Moody. I think there's just one NBA playoff game. Golden State at Minnesota, game 2. Thanks for salutations, Angel, and others who are joining us. All right, so we've gone through kind of minutes, what I view as a kind of a minutes allocation. Some of the players that I think have all league potential, which is basically half of the 10. And if you look at it as an 8 deep true two tier rotation, more than half I think have potential to be all SEC. So we've kind of gone through some of that. Tonight I'm going to look at it from a production standpoint, maybe projecting a little bit some ranges of production for this team, for this second John Calipari Arkansas Razorback squad. So we're going to look at that. We'll just touch briefly on the Pro Hogs. There are 3 standing in the NBA playoffs as we're now in the conference semifinals. So you're down to 8 teams and 2 semifinal series each in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference. So we'll go through that a little bit. And then a reminder that a big decision's coming up that impacts Arkansas from the class of 2026 in just a week from now, a week from today. So that's coming up pretty fast. You know who I'm talking about, but we'll get into specifics. But the NIL part of it, I came on and said on a couple of segments a while back that Arkansas was around $9 million, maybe a little north of $9 million. Now I'm told that number, while it's not to 10, when you count everybody and everything that are in the works, it's probably closer to 9.5, between 9.5 to 10 than it is between 9 and 9.5. So that's, a little bit more clarity for me in the most recent conversation when I had with someone who I trust about what they've gathered. Not all of the individual numbers were shared with me. I won't share any of that. I never do that. I never go that far. But I will break it down into a couple of segments here. The retention part of it, Arkansas put its money where its mouth is. John Calipari, the Razorbacks did that, not just in terms of the effort and the success in keeping the guys they wanted to keep. And again, we're keeping an eye on Carter Knox and see what happens with the combine and some other opportunities he's going to have. But every player that's being retained, including Knox, got a significant raise over what they got a year ago. Significant. And I think that's important. This is why you didn't see Arkansas's retention pieces entering the portal. Remember, I told you I had good source information that Big Z wanted more and wanted a bigger role than the staff was willing to go with him. And so that was a catch and release. Arkansas could have retained him. But the guys that they earmarked as, no, we need these players and we need to see increased roles and productivity from these guys, the 4, Carter Knox, DJ Wagner, Trevor Brazile, and Billy Richmond III. Each one of those players got a significant increase. If you remember, the initial reporting I gave you was that TB was lowballed on his first initial. This is way back when the portal first opened. But you have to remember at that time, Arkansas was also still in the Native Mint sweepstakes, and they were still trying to put together a sweet enough package to convince a Duke Thero, to come back for year 4 under Calipari in his second season as a Hog. And I thought he had, an all SEC kind of season last year. Didn't make an all league team, but he should have. But so things changed on that. We never saw Brazil test the portal waters. And so Arkansas came correct on that pretty quickly. So as it turns out, when we saw that retention video and those smiles, and we're all in. I know TB rolls a little differently. He's kind of a stoic. Maybe didn't seem all that enthused, but everybody knew at that point what they were getting. That stuff had been cemented, and Arkansas went all out. So you might have assumed that everybody got a bump. You might have assumed that when you hear Arkansas is prioritizing retention, and for good reason, that the raises were good. From now, what I gather and getting more details and specifics on it, these were significant increases. Arkansas really invested in that and not deep diving into the portal where they could have. They could have done that. And I think that's the way to go. Remember, Arkansas, 59.3% of the minutes from last season will be on this next Arkansas team. That's the second most in college basketball, behind only Purdue. And it helps you understand why Arkansas appears in the top 10 in several of the way too early top 25 polls when you're talking, ESPN's Jeff Borzello, the Field of 68 and Jeff Goodman, of all people, to give Arkansas the nod as a top 10 team preseason, even though it's way early. CBS Sports and John Rothstein. Today, you had another poll that updated CBS Sports top 25 and 1, Arkansas 19th, so a little further out, but still the bulk of that respect is coming from what Arkansas is bringing back on a team that, again, finished so strong, and every one of those players had a heavy hand in that. So that's part of what we want to talk about today, is just how has NIL impacted this roster build? And half of a projected top 8 rotation is your retention, and that's where most of the money went. Also, from what I got out of this, 2 things about their other 4 that are going to be in your top 8 rotation. The 2 5-star freshmen, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas, and the 2 big men out of the portal, Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle. Couple of things. Arkansas felt like they had a strong NIL package at a good value for Arkansas. So it's kind of twofold, a combination of they felt like the value made sense. And again, if you look at some of the price tags that are out there, Arkansas didn't get in the market for those kind of players. You didn't hear big numbers thrown around for Malik Ewan. And there was buzz about some other teams getting in the mix for him. Auburn, Kansas for a while, some other schools, Mississippi State, Virginia. Really quiet on Nick Pringle. You never really heard, other than his initial contact list, anybody but Arkansas. But Arkansas feels really good about being competitive and strong in the NIL that they offered and delivered with these players. But also they felt like they got the value end of it as well. So they don't feel like they overspent. And I go back to last year. We always said the first recruiting class was much different because of how it had to be done with a new coach coming in. And the Kentucky guys that followed him had to go through the portal, but they were really retention, and you were getting Brazil back, and you had a freshman class that had signed with Kentucky, bringing up all of that. What they did in the portal was just 2 players, the same as it looks right now. And Arkansas had a strong NIL offer for Nelly Davis, but there were some other NIL packages for other players not ranked as highly as he was that were, sometimes considerably more than what he got. And so they've had value ranges on everybody. They turned away for some players because they weren't going to exceed what they saw as the built-in value and how they would use that player and what their role would be and what the significance of bringing them on board would be. And I think they've done the same thing here. And again, I always said, and I told you this, I never gave the amount, that I thought DJ Wagner's offer to come from Kentucky to Arkansas was maybe a little higher than what I would have imagined. But as he becomes a year 3 player now, going into next season under Calipari, his second at Arkansas, and the most veteran player of that one lead guard /2 combo guard or 2 spot shooting guard, he's your veteran. And so he got a significant bump. Carter Knox, again, significant bump. I think there's wiggle room, and I mentioned this before, to increase Knox if that's what it's going to take to lure him, if there's some kind of mid-second round deal for him that's fairly attractive, there may be a bump in line for him. I think there's some wiggle room there to go ahead and say, yeah, go ahead and come back. If it comes to that, if it ever comes to that, it may not. It may not. There's NIL money. Something else I learned from this. There is NIL money for Isaiah Sealy and Kareem Artal. I don't have specifics on that. There's another player that there's a decision coming down whether they're going to go somewhere, sort of a back end kind of piece again, whether they'll go somewhere where they'll get initial, playing time and an initial role, and there's some NIL money. There's opportunities for a Terrion Burgess, class of 2025, elsewhere, but there's a possibility for him to be sort of a back end player. Maybe not as slotted as highly even as Sealy and Artal on the back end of the 10 you have. But if he's number 11, there may be an opportunity for him at Arkansas and there'd be NIL money there too. That would be and I think a unique arrangement for him in terms of his NIL. I might speak more about that later. I've been putting some of that together. And it might be just a little bit different for him if it works out. Again, there's a decision to be made from his camp. Do they want to go the developmental piece, potentially a red shirt, potentially just an emergency body as a freshman, or do they want to go somewhere where they know he'll have a role immediately, can have impact, and really begin his playing career the way he envisioned it, which is a real opportunity to do it as a freshman. So those are some things to consider when we look at this overall NIL package that's getting closer to 10 million. Is there anything left over then to help get Knox back if it's needed? I think so. What about an Adu Thero who still could come back to college because he hasn't eliminated his eligibility? But it seems very doubtful, and we've said this all along, that that's even going to happen, that that's likely, that that's possible. The more mocks you see, the better his projections are leading up to the combine. And maybe that's kind of like the stock market where they're starting to price in some things they think is going to happen in the few days, where people probably think his measurables, his testing, some of that stuff is going to skyrocket for him during that combine. But you're seeing more and more late first round, early second round projections for him. It makes it seem even less likely that he would come back. But let's say that it didn't work out and it looks like he's not going to go, be where he wants to be. And Arkansas had put together a really sweet NIL deal for him. I don't think you can backtrack on what you've done for the others. So you need to have to raise that, I guess. Figure out how to make that work if you could get him back. Because I think the staff would obviously try to do that. Here's, again, an all-league guy, and then you'll figure out the minutes at that 3-4, he's as a 3-4 combo, how to make that work. I will say this, for those that have kind of bristled, Arkansas definitely has some weaknesses when you look at the 10, when we talk about it right now. Lack of depth on the front line, which was a problem last year, and we saw it play out with injuries, and lack of a shooter and an additional experienced guard in the backcourt who can stretch the floor a little bit. There's no doubt about that. But when you really think about last year when Arkansas was only 9 deep and didn't have any emergency backup guys that could play filler, when they had 9, when those 9 were together, before guys started to get hurt and miss, they won only one game that was against a team that had a pulse. That was Michigan and New York City. Only once. They started 0-5 together in SEC play. That Michigan game, speaking of Adu Thero, didn't even play his normal lot of minutes. Remember, he was ill. They started him, I think, and checked him out of the game quickly. He didn't play the full allotment of minutes. So what I'm saying is, if you're shrinking down from a true 9 to a true 8, but the other 2 or 3 that you have, let's use still Sealy and Artal for now as the examples, and potentially a Burgess, and you could actually play those guys where otherwise the guys you had outside your top 9 last year were never going to play. You could see the logic in that in terms of a little bit less in that rotation was more. Arkansas did better when they had fewer available of their top 9 guys who are all really talented. This top 8 they're all really talented. So maybe there's something there. but it doesn't take away the fact that if you go that route, you are thin again on that front line. You're begging for trouble there, and you don't have a proven shooter at the college level. You just don't. You've got Trevor Brazil, who's got a good percentage on respectable volume relative to being a stretch four, and playing really good his last 9 games of last season. Carter Knox, who really came on, but not a high volume shooter. Malik Thomas, who is at the high school level, but unproven at this level. So two things can be true at once. There's some logic to your retention plan, why you might shrink down to a true 2 deep that's only 8 deep instead of 9. But you did kind of answer some of the attrition question marks by guys that are playable, players 9 through 10 or 11, if you get in a pinch. But you probably didn't really come full circle to get a little more quality on that front line depth and a little more quality when we talk backcourt shooting. All right, so we're 15, 16 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Let's play the numbers game now. I'm convinced. I've said this for a while. I've said Darius Acuff may very well be an all-SEC kind of a guy, the true freshman guard, 6'2", IMG Academy. Just named the Allen Iverson National Player of the Year, first-team high school All-American this year. We know, top 5 rated player. And I've said he's going to get 30 minutes per game. I believe that's probably about right. I could see this is my front runner to be Arkansas's leading scorer. He is a scoring lead guard. He'll facilitate, but he is a scoring lead guard. He's got a knack for getting to his spots, getting to good finishing spots inside the arc. He is a mystery shooting from 3 range. We'll see if he can find a way to get himself around 34 to 36%. I'd take that in a heartbeat right now. But I think he's going to be around anywhere from 14 to 18 points per game. That's my initial projection for Darius Acuff. And I think that might, if he's at the upper end of that range, he may end up being Arkansas's leading scorer as a freshman. I don't rule that out. And think of guys like Jeremiah Fears at OU and Trey Johnson at Texas. Acuff could have potentially that kind of impact in terms of just being a consistent scorer. He's been very efficient every time I've seen him inside the arc. He's really good. And so, getting to the rim, his rim finishing percentages, mid-range, floaters, that kind of thing, I think will all be solid. And now it's just a matter of how good is he from 3, which would help Arkansas. We just described what the issues are there. But I think 14 to 18 points, he'll land somewhere in there probably per game. And maybe closer to the upper end of that is Arkansas's leading scorer. I project 3.5 to 4 assists per game. I don't think he'll be quite as good as Boogie was in similar minutes, but I think he'll probably be better than what DJ was last year in even a higher amount of minutes. So I've got him there. And let's give him a steal per game playing that many minutes. Rebounding, I'll project anywhere between 2 and 3 rebounds per game. But here's a guy I do. I think he's going to have a good shot at being all SEC first, second, or third team. I think he's going to have a shot at being the all SEC freshman of the year, newcomer of the year, the all freshman team. I mean, something would have to go terribly wrong for that not to happen. I see Darius Acuff Jr. as an all-league performer, however you want to slice it up. It's going to happen. Probably the only team I wouldn't project him to based on what I've seen is the all-defensive team for the SEC. Moving to your 2-guard spot, DJ Wagner, I'm kind of projecting him closer to 30 minutes than around the 35 he was playing last year. We'll see if Arkansas is able to do that. But I've got him slotted 11 to 13 points per game. He inched up. He was right at 10 points per game at Kentucky. He was over 11 points per game last season, especially when that rotation shrunk down and he took over that lead guard spot. So 11 to 13 points per game. I've got him at 3.5 to 4 assists per game, and a steal per game. And he'll, I see him as someone that's probably similarly rebounding wise, anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 rebounds per game. And I think there's a pathway for DJ Wagner to have an all SEC season as well. I mean, I could see, they're doing it now, first, second, and third teams, 5-player teams. If Arkansas is a front runner in this league and he's playing heavy minutes and he's one of the, he's solid defensively and he's just, kind of that guy that stands out, in multiple ways, I could see him sneaking in on a third team, maybe all defensive team. I think there's potential for it. I'm not predicting it. I think there's potential for it. Um, Carter Knox, this is the guy. If you get him back, I see him going again from 24 minutes, what he had last year, to 30 this year, 13 and a half to 16 points per game. He's probably my second pick for the guy that would potentially lead this team in scoring. And, I'm not saying 16 has to be a ceiling. It's just kind of how I see it right now. I'm not saying he can't do better than that, but I'm feeling somewhere between 13 and a half to 16 points per game, somewhere between 4.5 to 5.5 rebounds per game. That's a considerable step up for him, but I think he's going to be seeing some time as a small ball four, the way this roster is constructed. And I think with his physicality and maturity, he's a guy that's going to raise the bar, not only in his scoring, but on the glass. And I'm going to project him at a steal per game and an assist per game for now. Maybe one, slightly more than a steal or an assist per game, but hovering around one. And another guy that's got all SEC potential. And by the way, defensively, I really like DJ and Knox in that backcourt wing group. Acuff, well, that'll be a work in progress. But with those two, I feel like you've got a really good start defensively in your backcourt. And when Billy Richmond, who we'll get to here in a second, when we look at his numbers that I'll project, I think defensively, again, he's someone else that helps you at that wing spot. And when he's playing on the ball a little bit, we'll see if he sees any minutes at the two. There may be stretches where it's DJ Knox and Billy Richmond, the three. Those are your backcourt players for stretches when Acuff and Malik Thomas aren't in the game. Trevor Brazile, your starter at the four, I've been saying 25 minutes per game. I see him as anywhere from like a 9.5 to 12.5 points per game value. And if he plays like he did in those last 9 games consistently, I've got him averaging between 7 and 8 rebounds per game. He could do better than that, but there'll be games where he's in foul trouble. I don't know if he can sustain the quality of what he did consistently throughout a season. And I don't know how many ups and downs there'll be. You better hope there's not a lot the way this roster is constructed now, because there's not a true four in there to back him up. So 9.5 to 12.5 points per game, 7 to 8 rebounds per game. I've got him between 1 and 1.5 blocks per game, a steal per game. And another guy that could land on an all SEC team, whether it's a back end second or third team, depending on how well he does, or an all defensive kind of guy. But I see Trevor Brazile as having potential to be all SEC. Remember, Eric Patrick Melsman once upon a time called him a top 5 player in the SEC. And he's still in the league. So, and he's got a lot of years under his belt now, and maybe ready to play his best basketball consistently. Malik Ewan, this is to me Arkansas starter at the 5 out of the 2 portal bigs they got. Also around 25 minutes per game, average between 14.5, 15 points at Florida State. I've got him at Arkansas somewhere between 12.5 to 15.5 points per game. He's probably my third leader right now in terms of pecking order of who I would say could lead this team in scoring. And he could certainly average more than 15.5, but I think the way I see it right now, I projected him in that range, 12.5 to 15.5. I think this is going to be the team's leader in rebounding. And I've got him between 7.5 and 8.5 rebounds per game, somewhere in that range. And I think he's going to figure out a way to go from 0.8 blocks per game to 1. I think he's going to average 1 block per game. I don't know why I think that. I think he's going to figure out a way to improve his rim protection. Another guy I see with all SEC potential because of his versatility. No, he's not going to stretch the floor as a shooter, but he is a creative scorer 15 feet and in, and he can actually back players down further out on the floor. He can actually bring it up the court. He's that good of a ball handler, and he's a good passer out of those situations. I project he could be anywhere from 1.5 to 2 assists per game as well. Speaking of the passing element there. So this is kind of a guy that brings you multiple qualities. And, when you start looking at the pick and roll game, the dribble handoff game, because he can pass and handle, there may be some Jalen Williams feel in some of the things he does there. Jay Will became a competent 3-point shooter. Do not see having vision for Ewan. Nick Pringle off the bench, 20 minutes per game right now is my projection. 7.5 to 9 points, 5.5 to 6.5 rebounds in those minutes. That's probably about right for him. Malik Thomas, Right now, only a projection for 20 minutes per game. This is a guy that I think can rewrite some of these projections, but I've got him right now with a pretty wide range as a score, 7.5 to 10.5 points. It's relative to the minutes. If he's knocking down some threes and he's shooting those efficiently in his minutes, and doing enough, figuring things out defensively and what his responsibilities are, he's an excitable kind of guy. Plays with a high level of energy. And at what point is there a trust level where he's allowed to has kind of a freedom to get into some of the stuff he likes to do as a scorer, and can he keep himself on the court because of what he's doing defensively? So 7.5 to 10.5 points. I've got this guy as much as in 20 minutes, 3 to 3.5 rebounds per game. That's pretty good for a true freshman in those minutes. That's pretty damn solid for that amount of minutes for a 6'4" guy. And I see him as an SEC all freshman caliber kind of guy coming into it. So there's potential for that. That'd be an all league team. Billy Richmond III, we're going from 17.5 to 20 minutes per game. And I've got him somewhere slotted 7.5 to 10 points per game, 4 to 5 rebounds per game. That's really good, especially for the minutes, and 1.5 assists, and maybe 1 steal per game. But I see him as someone that potentially he'd have to probably play more than that, especially in SEC play, and we may see that. But I see him as having a potential to be maybe an all SEC, an SEC all defensive kind of guy. Maybe an outside chance. I think he'd have to play more than 20 minutes per game probably to do something like that. But maybe he will. But I think there's potential there for that. So when you look at that top 8, you not only have really good retention off a Sweet 16 team. Let's face it, a couple of plays away from being an Elite 8 team. But you got a lot of all league qualities and more, and at least 5, maybe 6 of that top 8. I think the only player I said that I didn't mention having some potential for it was Pringle. So I guess 7. Do I think that many will be all SEC? No. I think if you get 3 guys when you didn't have any last year, and we know partly why that was. Guys missed games due to injury. Arkansas had to have a flurry of a finish. And the body of the work at that point, there wasn't a lot of respect on the names on Arkansas's players. And they did end up only 8 and 10 in the league. But if you have a really good season, including the SEC, I think at least 3 of these guys can land in there, maybe half of that top 8, maybe as many as 4, when you're adding up the various ways you can get to there. But that was kind of my view on the scoring ranges. Certainly, I left the door open for all but really one player to get to double-figure scoring, because I'm not sure yet how all these roles are going to sort out. Do I think Arkansas is going to have 7 players average double figures? No. Let me clarify that. The top end range for everybody got me to 7 that could, but I think probably 4 or 5 will. So we just got to see how some of these things work out and play out. And again, this is a team that I understand why there's a lot of respect outside of On3 Sports in terms of preseason way too early rankings, not assuming anything about adding any more players out of the portal or international players later. All those things, I guess, are possible. It seems to me that the money they've spent on NIL and what the vision is here with the retention part of it, how hard they went on that, I see why they keep repeating, we feel good about what we have. Anything else has to make sense. They're just not going to, the way I see it, unless Knox stays in the draft, they're not going to put pay a pretty penny for anybody at this point. And then if you're scaling it down on that, what are you really getting? Who are you getting if you're going low money? Someone can really impact it, an emergency guy. Maybe some of these guys will work out as emergency plug-in players. Maybe you'd like to get one more. So we'll see what they do. A shooter would be great, but again, you might have to spend for someone that could really come in and impact that. All right, 29 minutes in. We're going to wrap it up pretty soon. Pro Hogs. Isaiah Joe, 14 points last night. Didn't miss a shot. 5 of 5 from the field, 4-4 from 3-point range. He hit his first 3 in the closing stages of the first quarter off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder when they really started to blow out the Denver Nuggets in Game 2 after being shocked on their home court in Game 1. Series now tied one game apiece. But Isaiah Joe also hit a three in the third quarter when some of the starters for OKC were still in the game, and they were trying to sustain a big lead going into the fourth quarter where they could rest their starters. Isaiah Joe remained in the game. And I thought Jalen Williams, but Isaiah also had 2 assists, a rebound, and a steal, a box score plus 10, I believe, when the dust settled for him in like 17 minutes. So a good game for Isaiah Joe, perfect shooting from the field, 14 points. But I thought Jalen Williams, he hit a 3 points. He missed a couple of free throws, a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists. He also had a steal. I thought his minutes were huge, especially guarding the Joker. And he got first quarter minutes as well. And defensively, several times he frustrated the Joker, the 3-time league MVP out of the last 4 years. Caused him to miss some shots, some close range shots, just by being physical and staying attached and not fouling. And then he frustrated the Joker. He got him frustrated and actually helped get him fouled out in that game. Fouled him out in the third quarter. That game was over anyway at that point. But Jalen Williams defensively was a dog last night and played a really good floor game. He always does. So those 2 Pro Hogs have been very valuable to a team that won 68 games. They're among a handful of teams to win that many games in the history of the NBA. They had the greatest record against the Eastern Conference of any team ever. I think they only had 1 loss, 40 wins and 1 loss playing against Eastern Conference teams. I mean, they've set so many standards this year and established so many standards and record-breaking performances. When you look at the body of work, the best record in the league, a first round sweep over the Memphis Grizzlies, and now in a dogfight. Got to go now. They're going to have to win a game in Denver at some point. That's where the series shifts again, tied 1 apiece. And both of these guys now, hopefully, they are prepared for that high altitude, right? I hear from former Hogs all the time about playing in some of these places, especially Denver and Colorado, Utah, some of these other areas, and they always say that's a real thing, that altitude. So you got to adjust to it. There are no excuses. But Isaiah Joe, he's averaging 8 points per game in the playoffs, 6 games into it. He's 12 of 27 from 3 overall in 6 games. That's 44.4% efficiency from 3. So defenses get tougher. The spacing gets eliminated. I mean, it becomes a much more physical, violent game in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. And you see a lot of percentages go down, and Isaiah Joe's have gone up. He was a 41+% shooter on the season from 3, now 44.4%. You look at J. Will, he outside of playing 19 minutes in a blowout against Memphis in game 1 of that series, it was a 4-game sweep. He played his most minutes last night. I mentioned how impactful he was, 12 minutes against Denver last night. And he had a box score plus 16. So it was a blowout, but both of those guys played well in that game. Moses Moody tonight, that game's underway. I'll be checking that out again. Golden State, Minnesota game 2. Golden State won on Minnesota's home court in game 1. By the way, these 8 teams, 4 remaining semifinal games, 2 in each conference. Oklahoma City's home win last night was the first home win in the semifinals in either conference. And that was the 7th game played. So Boston already in an 0-2 hole after getting beaten twice by the Knicks in dramatic fashion in the Garden. And now that series shifts to New York with the Knicks up 2-0. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the number 1 seed out of the Eastern Conference, losing twice to the Indiana Pacers on Cleveland's home court. Now that series shifts to the Pacers' home court. And again, Golden State 1-0. Steph Curry went out fairly early in that game. He's out for a week with a grade 1 hamstring injury. But Moses Moody, when you look at going 7 games against Houston after being up 3-1 in that series, and it goes 7 games and Golden State prevailed. Moses Moody averaged 9.6 points per game in that 7-game series. Now, he struggled in the last game in that series shooting, and he's also struggled in game 1 against Minnesota. He missed, I think, 4 or 5 of the shot attempts that he took. He had been starting. He's now playing off the bench. We'll see how things change for him and others in the lineup now that Steph's out, at least for a few more days, which will mean at least probably as many as 2 to 3 games missed. But Golden State still found a way to win and really was in control against Minnesota, even when Steph went out, actually built on a lead and got it to 20 plus, 23 points and held on. But Moses Moody is, again, you talk about 3 Pro Hogs still in it. All 3 of them have impacted the series they've been in so far, series wins, and will continue to have roles and be productive the way I see it moving forward. So you wish those fellas good luck representing the Pro Hogs at this point. And just one more reminder, we are exactly a week away from today, May 15th. That's a Thursday. Well, today's Thursday the 8th. J.J. Andrews, class of 2026, a commitment announcement will be made. So we're about to find out if Arkansas is going to be off the board with the first commitment, first pledge out of the high school ranks for the 2026 class. That'll be John Calipari's 3rd recruiting cycle at Arkansas. ESPN, again, ranks him number 22. He'll be in play for, once a McDonald's All-American game roster's announced, he's got a shot at that. We'll see what happens there. I've said this all along. Based on his dad, he would be a legacy based on his dad being an All-American lineman at Arkansas in football, went on to be an All-Pro in the NFL. The fact that he's an in-state kid, the fact that it's John Calipari and his success rate with high school players and players of this caliber specifically and helping them get to the next level. All of those things make Arkansas easily the clear leader. But if not for, and this is what we know about the NIL era, if either LSU or Missouri are promising a hefty NIL package well and above what Arkansas is willing to do on its valuation range for him, it will correlate also to the kind of role being promised. You're not going to put down a heavy bag for someone that you're not going to use. And if they go there and say, you're going to be our guy, or we're building it around you, we're promising you this role in this many minutes, if that jumps ahead, even if it hasn't happened yet, in the next few days, if there's someone willing to do something more that's significantly more than what Arkansas will do, all bets are off. That will upset the apple cart. I've got more than one source that thinks Arkansas is going to get him. The staff feels good about how they prioritized him. I know that. And so we're just kind of repeating what we've already said, but we're getting closer. And so just remind everybody, don't be shocked by anything. And it'll be a clear sign. I mean, because if it's close, if Arkansas is not even the best in NIL, but it's close, he's coming to Arkansas. If there's enough of a gap, and again, promised role and money, all bets are off. All the loyalty stuff, the legacy stuff, all that, you can't blame anybody for going out there and maximizing what they can get. So that's a real possibility here. Until I learn more. I mean, it's because of things like that even if I were doing crystal balls, it would be hard for me to do one on this, even though everything else lines up and makes perfect sense for it. So, those are the kind of factors we'll be paying attention to. All right, we're not going to get to 40 minutes tonight, 38 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. I'm off to watch that lone NBA game tonight, Golden State, Minnesota. Thank you for joining me. Please hit subscribe, like, and share. Subscribe for sure if you haven't done that already. We appreciate that. If anything breaks, if we get a commitment announcement or something else that shifts or scheduling news, that stuff could start popping, this month. We'll have the NBA draft combine next week. So we'll be jumping on to talk about some of that. I'll be back on, I'm sure, this weekend anyway. Find something else worth talking about. Great work, Kevin. Thank you. Ask Honor about that. Well, yeah, he didn't get in the transfer portal, though, did he? So I don't know what other promises followed the original promises, but apparently, we'll see if that turns into one of those fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me situations. DVH about to win a natty. Sure. Let's kudos to those Diamond Hogs for sweeping Texas, the number 1 ranked team. How about sweeping Texas in basketball and sweeping Texas in baseball? The big 3 in football. No, Arkansas didn't win that game, but was competitive. Had a chance to win late. I know nobody wants to hear that, but in a season that you went to a bowl and won your bowl game, and you weren't embarrassed at least by Tech. I know that's no moral victories, but hey, when you add it all up, Arkansas is owning Texas right now where it matters. I really am signing off. Thanks for being here. Until next time, take care of yourselves. See you soon.